Hello everyone, coming to you again with another Music Talk Tuesday, and I'm going to be caught up by today. I just need to finish my book, and then I'll probably be doing the last video in the evening. So without further ado, let me talk about some of the saddest songs that I happened to find for me. And these are my favorite saddest songs. For me, these songs sort of fill me with a kind of sad-like emotion. They fill me with memories that aren't always so happy, but they're very resonative, and I think it's important that people look into songs that aren't always so happy or so go-lucky, and look into other songs that hold very deep meaning and resonance. And sometimes that resonance isn't always filled with a joy or an ecstasy. It's more of an emotion of pain or of sadness, or depression, however you want to coin the term. But basically, I'm just going to address a couple of the ones that I found to be very sad to me and fairly appealing for their sadness, because I sort of identify with it in a way. The first one I wanted to talk about, and it seems to me that a lot of people have mentioned this song, and it's called "May It Be" by Enya. And in case you don't know who Enya is, basically she's sort of like a vocalist singer who does a lot of vocal stuff. I believe she's Irish. I'm not exactly sure. I could be wrong, but I think her style is more reminiscent of something that we would probably hear from Europe, or in particular maybe the UK, and I think I want to say that she's Irish, but I could be wrong. I just remember my parents have several of her albums, and a lot of her songs seem to have this sort of like sound or appeal to them that sort of deals with something that you maybe would hear out of the UK. However, this song I don't think really gears towards that. I think this song is trying to sort of capture a mood of sadness, and this was used for the first Lord of the Rings movie. I believe probably for the soundtrack, at least. It wasn't in the movie though, I believe. Maybe at the end credits, but I'm not sure exactly where, if they would place it anywhere, because it wasn't in the movie, but it might have been at the end credits, but I don't remember hearing that at the end credits, but could be. Yeah, basically this song I think is just trying to address sort of the struggles of how a journey can really change your life, and how in the process of that journey sometimes things end up being sort of lost, and we're not able to, I guess, maybe regain what maybe we've lost. And I think the Lord of the Rings, the first one in particular, is sort of starting out with this kind of a journey, and how there is these kinds of sad moments along the way. And I think that's really what her song is trying to encapsulate, is this idea of, that you can somehow have like sort of this hope, no matter how hard or heartbreaking the journey can be. And I think that fills me with a lot of sadness, because it reminds me of certain things, and and I think it really helps me come to terms with things that have maybe happened in my life. And I think that this song is in particular trying to show you sort of how the hardships of life can really give us a lot of pain, but we can somehow cling on to this idea that no matter how much we're torn apart, we can always rise. I think that's sort of the idea, and how sometimes things happen that maybe be beyond our control, but we have to somehow hold on to what we have within ourselves. I think that's really what the song is trying to say, for the most part. And to me, it kind of just feels that way through how she sings, through sort of the delicacy of her voice, as well as the sort of the sort of hums that come in the background. She does a lot of humming, and in her songs I've kind of noticed that, but I think it's appropriate, and I think it's well done from that standpoint. And I think it's very it's kind of like this it's kind of heartbreaking to listen to, but it still has this sort of beauty within itself that allows it to be sort of beautiful yet tragic, and I think it works. It works for this kind of a song. Now, the next one I wanted to talk about was Sometimes You Can't Make It On Your Own by U2. Now, this song in particular was a song excuse me. It was a song that Bono basically wrote for his dad, and his dad passed away from cancer, and apparently he sang it at his funeral. So it kind of shows you like the emotional already by what he sort of dedicated the song to. You can tell that this song is supposed to be kind of a tearjerker, and it is. It's kind of addressing this idea where I think he's sometimes he is kind of talking about throughout the song sort of his dad, and how much his dad meant to him, and how hard it is for him to be without him. But I think the whole point is to show you that sometimes you need that special someone in order to come into your life and to help you. That sometimes you can't make it on your own. That idea. But the important thing is that you don't take that person for granted. I think that's the really whole idea of what Bono's trying to get behind with this song, and just by his voice as well as the music, I think really emphasizes this kind of a point, and I think it's very identifiable, and you really do feel like he's really passionate about the song, and it's just sad. It has this kind of a sad emotional impact, at least from my point of view. I believe it does. So it's just sad to listen to, and I think it encompasses this idea of how we sometimes really look to people for our help, and when they're gone, it's really hard for us to move on, and sometimes we need to kind of let the emotions all out, and not keep them hidden anymore, and sort of embrace the idea of being sad, and understanding that it's okay to be sad, because sometimes you can't make it on your own. It's kind of like that whole idea of appreciating the person, and even though they're gone, it's important to cherish their memory. So I think that's really the whole idea of what Bono was trying to say with that song, and U2. So I think that's really all I can say about that one. The next one I wanted to talk about was Someone Like You by Adele, and this one's a more recent song, but man, is this song depressing. Every time I hear this, and I know it may be a little bit overexposed, like people have just heard this song constantly, and I understand that it can be kind of maybe played too much. I understand that, but for me, every time I hear it, and I don't hear it so often because as much as I used to, I think it's sort of they're realizing, okay, maybe we shouldn't play this song and give people depression, but for some reason, every time that piano starts playing, and I just start to feel like I start to feel like sad. I mean, I can't help but feel that way. And it's just, and by her voice too, and how it's, and how the song tries to highlight this idea of how, sometimes that there is no way for us to be able to maybe keep what we maybe desire or want, and sometimes we have to let those things go because and ultimately I think this song is really displaying this through heartbreak, and usually Adele's songs sort of encompass like some form of a relationship that didn't work out. Not all of her songs, but some of them do, and this one is just an example of that, but I think it's just very well done. I think she has a really powerhouse of a voice, and I really like the piano bits that play in the background. I think she's really good with having her vocals shine and then having the piano play as well. And I actually think she's better live. I think I saw a performance of her live, and I think her live performance was actually better than the one in the studio. So I may put that one up instead of the one where it's probably on the album or something of that nature, because I think her presence, and also to see her actually be very emotionally invested in the song, like her crying when she performed it, I think it really shows that this song has a really big impact. And she says basically that when I heard her talking sort of about her album, she said that that the album can be summed up in like Someone Like You. That's what she kind of said. So I think this song in particular is very resonative of what she wanted to do with her album and what she wanted to get across with her album. And I mean, it's sad to listen to, and I think it has this powerhouse of an emotion that can lead people to feeling a little bit more on the lines of sad. So yeah, I think that's really definitely a song to consider. Another song, and I'm going to mention two songs by this band, because both of them, for some reason, they just depress me every time I listen to them. And this song is called The Scientist by Coldplay, and Fix You by Coldplay. Now, The Scientist is, I think, more focusing on the idea of how we need to sort of progress, but sometimes maybe we don't want to, because it hurts us to, and we're afraid to. And I think that's the whole idea behind it, because he keeps saying in the song, take me back to the start. He kind of doesn't really want to move forward, and it's hard for him to. And I think that's really resonated onto people. I think people have had problems where it's hard for them to really move forward with whatever's happened in their life, and I think the song really highlights those kinds of emotions, and I think it has this sort of beautiful kind of a tragedy to it, and I think it's definitely worth taking into consideration, especially considering how it tries to fill us with this kind of a feeling, and especially with like these interesting lyrics as well, like with the idea of the scientist, and I find that to be interesting as well. So so this one I think feels like the most lyrically loose interpretation, because you can interpret it sort of however you want to, as to what the scientist really means. But I think with the other ones it seems to be a little bit more clear, but I think it's trying to address this idea of, it says like, nobody said it was easy, nobody said it would be this hard, oh take me back to the start. It's like, it's hard, it's dealing with this kind of progression, but I don't know what that progression is, because it can be interpreted various different ways. It could be dealing with losing somebody we care about, just anything, and having to move forward from that, or moving forward for whatever reason. And I think that it's just highlighted in that song, and I think it's just really well done. And it does fill me with this like sad feeling towards the end. Like every time I hear that song on the radio, it's like, it's so sad. Why? And then the next song I wanted to talk about that deals with Coldplay is the song called Fix You. And this one I think is a little bit more direct, and is it saying that, when, is like telling somebody that they'll help them or help deal with their problems, or whatever pains that they're going through. So I think in a sense it's maybe a little bit more uplifting, similar in the same way as May It Be, but it kind of tries to be, in a sense, a little bit more on the side of I think addressing those things more directly. For example, by saying things like, when you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you're so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse. That whole idea of, I guess, not being able to change like your circumstances. I think that that's very can be very empowering for a lot of people, and I think it can really work. And I think it has this kind of a hope to it with, at one point it says, but if you never try, you'll never know. Sort of like that whole idea of, if you never know what will happen unless you do something, unless you try to do something. I think that's just very important, and I think that's very very significant aspect of what people can learn and take in. But I think that's really all I can say about those two Coldplay songs. For some reason, every time I hear them, it's just sad. Now the next one is actually a particular one that has been on a lot of people's lists that I've looked at, and this one, I have to admit, it's been around throughout the years. I think it came out when I was in middle school or something like that, or sometime around that time. And it's called My Immortal by Evanescence, and yes, the song is it is fairly depressing. I think it's it has this kind of a depressing feel to it because of the of how the vocalist, I believe her name is Amy something, just Amy something, I don't know her last name, but I'm not particularly familiar so much with Evanescence work, but I do know they're like major hits. But this one I think just stands out for me because I think the way she describes like her feelings through her voice and by having all these various instruments playing in the background sort of highlights the very internal turmoil that she's going through, and how that may be because of a lost loved one, or be by someone that she maybe cared for very deeply, and then for some reason something bad happened. Could be various interpretations. I think that the lyrics sort of highlight within themselves really well, and give you a sense of the sadness, and I think her voice is just very beautiful and very, and has its own unique sense to it, and the way that she expresses through the way that she sings, I think is done very well and effectively as to how she's trying to address this turmoil that she's going through, and I think it's just a really well done song, and although I'm not really familiar so much with their work, and I guess I wouldn't consider myself someone who's really thoroughly in depth in understanding a lot of Evanescence work, but this song I think is just one that really just stands out to a lot of people, and I think it really resonates. So sad, depressing. Another one that I wanted to address was the Schindler's List theme by John Williams, particularly the one with the violin. And what I really find very sad about this theme, and this theme doesn't have words, it's not like all the other ones that I've mentioned where there's a vocalist and there's lyrics. I think just the silence within itself, without having someone sing and just having the violin sort of play, is very beautiful and very heartbreaking within its entirety. And what I think it's trying to do is it's just trying to show you sort of the like how humanity can be fairly cruel. I think that's really the whole idea, and I think it's trying to display that through having this be a piece where it deals with Schindler's List and the Holocaust, and how that's fairly impacting, and how how sad that event was, and how it shows us the sort of kind of failure of humanity, and it's fairly depressing throughout, but it also seems to string on these parts at the end where it kind of gives you this sense of that there is always this kind of hope, and it's through our kindness and through our genuine care for one another that really brings out the heart of humanity, and that it can be found within ourselves, and I think that's very, very significant and very deep, and it's just sad. I don't know how else to sum it up, but it's very powerful, and I just could not mention. And even though I did mention, or I did put it in under John Williams's like most famous works when I did the my favorite movie composers, but just had to mention it again a little bit individually, just to give you a sense of why I think it just resonates with me and how sad it is. So there's that. Second to last one is a song by Pearl Jam, and it's called Just Breathe. And basically this song kind of sort of highlights the dealing with loss, and sort of how someone can go through it, and how it's very impacting. The lead singer, I think, tries to give you a sense of, similar to U2's song, the idea of how maybe we take people for granted. At one point, I think it says, like, or he says, "Did I say that I need you? Did I say that I want you? Oh, if I didn't, I'm a fool, you see. No one knows this more than me." I think I might be paraphrasing some parts of it, but for the most part, that's, I think, really what it's trying to say, is that sometimes, we really do miss out and take people for granted, and then when they're gone, it's that kind of a feeling. And I think it's highlighted differently in U2's song, because I think this one is just sort of trying to be a little bit more less powerhousey, and trying to be a little bit more calm, instead of U2's song, where there's a lot of build up and Bono's voice gets a lot louder. For the most part, the lead guy in Pearl Jam, basically he sings it fairly medium toned. He doesn't really change, like, the volume of his voice, really. And I think he does a really good job of establishing what the song is trying to say, and it makes me sad listening to it. Now the last one I wanted to mention is Breathe Me by Sia, and this one it makes me rather sad, even though it's been showed, I think, in the Olympic commercials as to be more uplifting, and I think it kind of shows the sort of uplifting parts of the song. I still think this one has this kind of sad layer to it, because I think it's dealing with sort of this kind of a loneliness. I think out of all the other songs that I mentioned, they sort of deal with some form of a separation, or some kind of a loss, and this one is kind of just dealing with more of loneliness, and this kind of more inner turmoil of not being able to maybe find someone who cares, or who or finding someone that maybe uplifts them, because they don't have anybody there to make it so. I think, I mean, at one point she says, like, be my friend, hold me, wrap me up, but towards the beginning she says, like, I hurt myself again, and the worst part is that there's no one else to blame. So she's kind of, I think, dealing with this more of a personal struggle in dealing with herself, and maybe what she's went through, and I think she's having difficulty in finding someone to to basically comfort her and dealing with this kind of maybe a loneliness or an emptiness. I think that's really what I think the song is really trying to say for the most part. But I think that's really all I can say. These were really the songs that sort of stood out to me as like being rather sad and but at the same time having this sort of beauty to them, and I think we should appreciate sad songs as much as we do happy ones or uplifting ones or of such. I think that they highlight a lot of important things within life, and sometimes stuff within life is maybe more on the lines of tragic. And yeah, I think that's really all I can say about these songs. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. I'll be sure to put all the links down below to all the songs. And yeah, I'll try to see if I can get my book done, and then I will review it, and then I'll be caught up. But until next time, everybody, bye-bye.